Welcome to the Rat Race to 5 podcast, where we discuss money, mindset, real estate investing, and ways to achieve financial independence. Whether you are a rookie or a veteran needing new ideas for investing or creating side hustles, you're in the right place. Here to challenge you to think out of the box, your hosts, Felipe Mejia and Diego Corzo.
Diego, what's up, dude? Super excited for today's episode specifically because we have a good friend of ours, Sarah, Nerd's Guide to Fi on Instagram, from Dave Ramsey to no debt to buying homes to then she tells us a story of her divorce and then jumping back and buying more rental properties even through it. Man, it's a great story today.
Yeah, and it's really cool to hear how she, after the divorce and everything, she still went back and began house hacking. And that's something that a lot of people will say, no, it's not for me right now. I have a child. It's just me and my child. But she committed to it. And now she bought her property. She has another duplex. And the best part is that she's going to share how she bought it with private money, interest only. And yeah, it's an amazing story. So really excited.
Yeah, I'm super excited to get into it. One of the big takeaways from this is how she's a single and a mom, but is house hacking, which I was like, oh my gosh, like I would be terrified to do something like that. But she talks about how confidently and how it all works out and how she's got it structured in a really cool way, and what her family thinks about it. So no more banter, dude. Let's just get right into it. Sarah, what's up? Sarah, welcome to the show. I'm actually really excited to have you here at Rat Race to 5 podcast. We've been friends for a while. We know Diego for a while, but I'm excited because you have such a big story to tell, and me and Diego were excited to get it on and hear it since I know it. But I wanted our listeners to know that investors come from all walks of life, from all struggles of life, and you can be successful through and through. But Sarah, how are you today? I'm excited to dig in.
I'm doing fantastic. I am busy as heck, but I think that's how everyone is who grinds it out. So loving every minute of being extremely busy.
Yeah, no, I bet. Like I said a minute ago, I know a little bit of your story, but why don't we take it back to the beginning? On this podcast, Sarah, I love listening to people's story of how they became investors and what got them into it, who they are, kind of peeling back the layers, other than just like, oh, I have 100 doors and I make a bajillion dollars. It's like, okay, that's cool. But I want to know like who you are. And I think other people kind of want to as well. So let's start from the beginning, Sarah. Like, high school. What was that like for you? Who were you in high school? Were you part of the cool? Were you a mean girl? Oh my gosh, were you a mean girl? That would have been great. But like, how were you in high school? Like,
I'm not a mean girl, but I was probably friends with people that'd be considered mean girls, but I was really quiet and shy. So in the popular movie, right? Group, but being like awkwardly in the back. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us high school. Who were you in high school? Sports? What'd you do?
Specifically, Patty Heron from Mean Girls. Where I'm like, oh, I hate biology too. And then they're like, why do you have 120% in your biology classes? I'm like, oh yeah, about that. So I was like a closet nerd in high school. That is where I was at. But yeah,
hence the Instagram name.
Yes, exactly. Now I just own it. So
there you go.
Yeah, and I feel like I have a solid resting face a little bit. Can I say that on your podcast? So there's times where I just feel like people thought I was really mean in high school, but it was just because I didn't really talk that much. And yeah, I have that general look sometimes, so it doesn't help. Then I just full on go with the trend of lattes and Target. So we're just embracing it at this point where I do real estate and have a badass job and still wear Uggs. So that is my personality to a T.
The UGG white girl. I'm sorry, but I love that. Now you just embrace
people,
it.
Like, get on my Instagram and are probably like, who the hell is this girl? Like, we don't care about another basic white girl. And I feel like I have some street cred now. So
no, but wait a minute. You came to Nashville and you got picked up by a random Hispanic dude that took you to tacos. So how does that fit the narrative?
We did. That did happen. I needed a free ride from the airport. No kidding.
So you just embraced the taco.
And he offered to feed me. So I said, sure. My love language is food.
And free rides.
So I go to Nashville a lot for work, or I used to go a lot pre-pandemic. And actually I was there on Nashville for basic white girl things while we're on that topic. There for a bachelorette party, like everyone goes to Nashville for. And me and
Epic.
Felipe had been messaging each other on Instagram. And I was like, I really want to see kind of your model because I was fascinated by the up-down duplex idea and converting that walkout basement. And I was thinking that might have been a way to get into these higher price markets that I really like to invest in my area. And so I wanted to see how Felipe did it. And so he's like, well, I'll pick you up from the airport, rolls up in this like beat up truck, but also we should appreciate that because you're, financial independence. Like he's not going to show up in like a Mercedes. Like I'd be disappointed. But yeah. So like Felipe said, random Hispanic man rolls up to the airport and picks up a strange girl and drives her to, I don't know where, a suburb of Nashville. And we walked through a house together.
That was actually Diego's and I's house, Fanning. And I was in my work truck. Yeah, that was actually yours, Diego.
So she has seen the property. I still haven't seen the property since we bought it. So that's good.
It's very nice. It was
very nice
in the drywalling stages when I was there, but I could at least get the idea of the layout and kind of the nuts and bolts, which is really what I wanted to see, was like the mechanicals of it, how you do like windows, how you think about plumbing, all of that. So which is nice because I recreated that in Indiana.
I was gonna say, well, we're gonna come back to that because you actually have, and I want to get into that story about the window and like what you're doing now and all that fun stuff. So no, I'm excited to get into that. So you in high school, clearly you were in the closet nerd. Now you embrace it. I love that. What about college? What was college life like for you? Did you do real estate in college or was that way after?
No, it was way after. So I was a very like, this is what you do. You graduate high school, you go to college, you get the good job, like follow all the marks. Like did like business school at first and then realized that I like science. And then I just kept going to college forever. So I did a 4-year undergrad, a 2-year master's, and then another master's degree. So I have 2 masters, which is, people don't know that very much because I just talk about real estate. And I do genetics for a living and I get the weirdest questions when I start talking about that. So I largely avoid it, but it is something I will talk to people about if they have questions.
Wait, so you did it like simultaneously or you did one back to back?
I did back to back. So I did my MBA second and I did that while I was working full time. So just an online.
So actual Instagram nerd, not just the name.
Literally in real life nerd. Like my day job is like medical expert in genetics.
Wow.
So
I did not know that at all.
Yeah.
So.
No, me neither. So maybe Sarah, you can tell me why I'm so beautiful genetically. Well, no, just kidding.
Multifaceted.
Wow.
I can't.
That's hilarious. I love it. Okay, so now we know a little bit of Sarah, actual real life super nerd. Not just nerd. Like you need to add super because you have like 2. You have 2. That's insane.
2 master's degrees.
Quite hit the doctor's degree. At least I didn't know about myself at that point that I need to work-life balance. And that is why I didn't go to medical school and why I didn't like pursue something else. I wanted a 9-to-5 job because I always wanted to do something else. And I didn't know what that meant yet, but I just like knew that was always a thing for me. So, which is kind of fascinating to see where that took us. So
did that happen because you read a book that taught you the mindset, like that you wanted to do something else later after the 9-to-5?
Actually, no. So it came from, so I rode horses in high school because I'm not coordinated. Like I can't catch a ball. Like, no, nerd through and through, like this shouldn't be a surprise. And so I rode horses and I was going to do that for a living. Like that was my dream. I even looked at colleges and got like a scholarship for like horseback riding. And then my trainer had like a come to Jesus and she's like, you will spend every morning, every night, every weekend with the horses. If you want to have a life or nice things, you're not going to like make any money or do things like that. And that was kind of a shock because that was my dream. My aspiration was to be like a professional, horseback rider, own a stables, give lessons. And I just wouldn't have a life and I wouldn't see my kids or family. And she really struggled with that and kind of talked with me about it. And then that kind of pivoted me like, oh, shit, I have to find something else now. And my parents were really excited about it because they're like, go get a real degree. Don't get your degree in equestrian studies.
That's really funny. So Sarah, I'm going to, and I only know this because I know you a little more personally, but you were a huge Dave Ramsey person before. It's almost like a cult.
It is a
I'll
cult.
call you a cultist.
It literally, like, I drank the Kool-Aid for many years.
So tell us a little bit about that, because I'm going to get it. We want to get into your real estate, of course, and thank you for sharing who you were in high school and college. Super nerd. I'm going to change your IG name your contact in my phone to super nerd. But Dave Ramsey. So you were a big Dave Ramsey before real estate. Tell us how that even started and like how all that worked.
I had a friend tell me about it because I got married, you did all the things. So you got married, you got your first job out of grad school, you got the, hospital, like basic job in my career field. That's usually what people start at. And you finance yourself a car. And then we financed my husband the car, and just like bought all of the things, ended up in this like huge pile of debt, like financed a motorcycle, like all this dumb stuff. There was like a car accident, like we financed more stuff. And then we ended up like almost $100,000 in debt. And I was like, well, this sucks. This doesn't feel like I have this job that I feel like I checked every box of what the American dream looks like. We bought a house, we did all the things. And I was like, I feel like I'm wildly unhappy. And I feel like I'm never going to have a life or fun or the type of life I wanted. And so a friend introduced me to Dave Ramsey, and I was like, I need to clean up this debt first so I can actually do things I want to do. So yeah. And then the pivotal like books happened about a year into Dave Ramsey. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then Actually Set for Life by Scott Trench, which is a Bigger Pockets book. So that's actually a good one.
That's actually a really good book.
Yes.
That's actually a really good book.
I was shocked how young Scott Trench was, because I read it before I was really in deep with like understanding Bigger Pockets. And I'm like, what? How old is he? Like, he wrote a really legit book. And I think just got me thinking differently about cars and lifestyle, because once you kind of get on the Dave Ramsey bandwagon, I learned at least how easy it is to save money and to have a good savings rate. So I'm like, what am I going to do next? Because this debt's going to be paid off, but I'm not going to just like go back to being a normal person after this. Like, I kind of want to do something different. And so then the whole financial independence thing really kicked off. So
that's good. That's good. And quick question, would you be able to describe, like, for the audience, what is the Dave Ramsey mentality if they haven't heard about Dave Ramsey yet?
If you haven't heard of Dave Ramsey, he hates debt of any kind. So all debt is bad. Student loans, car debt, credit cards. You don't use credit cards at all. So he does the baby steps. So you have your little $1,000 emergency fund, you pay off your debt, smallest to largest in the debt snowball. And then once you pay off all your debt, you save up a bigger emergency fund. Then you start investing your 15% into your 401k, and you do that until you retire at 65. And that sounded super lame to me.
So
personally.
When do you become
It is
rich?
a great program for most humans. So you become rich at the classic retirement age. And then you learn that like retirement isn't a number. Said that backwards. So retirement isn't an age, it's a number. So you can hit your retirement goal without being 65. And so the idea of doing the same thing once you hit baby step 4 for like the next 30 years just sounded like I wanted to die a bit inside.
So in a nutshell, it was no debt.
No debt. So in a nutshell, no debt, never use a credit card. Credit cards are evil and bad. And so is debt of any kind. And you don't want to have loans on properties, but he's actually fascinating to listen to, because occasionally he'll tell listeners to keep their rental properties and pay them off as a part of their snowball. So I've kind of like, when I very first got into real estate, I was like, I'm just going to do the reverse. I'm going to buy all my rental properties with debt, 20% down, and then pay them off and pretend like it's part of my snowball, because I've heard him tell people that have rentals and love them and don't want to get rid of them that they can keep them. So I'm like, well, he wouldn't applaud this situation. If I told him today, my goal is to buy 5 rentals with heaps of debt, he would be like, no, that's a terrible idea. But if I called in 5 years and had them already in a solid plan, he'd probably say, keep them. So I'm like, I'll just call in later once I've scaled up with a lot of debt. And that's kind of how that reverse, I guess, mindset is how I started creeping into the world of real estate, because I ran some really nerdy like financial calculators, and rentals just make such a big impact on your retirement age. So, and kind of that trajectory, it really shortened it, like way less years. Like that sounded way more fun than saving into index funds. So.
Go ahead, Diego. Go ahead.
Yeah. Right now, what does your portfolio look like now that you took the like you were into Dave Ramsey, then you went into Robert Kiyosaki, investing for good debt. What does your portfolio look like now? And then we can go back.
What does your debt look like now? No, I'm just kidding.
I have no personal debt except I have a $3,000 credit card that I'm paying off this month.
Cool.
Because I just wanted to finish my bathroom remodel before my next tenants moved in. And so I was like, pay off the lawyer from my divorce, or do I pay off this credit card? And so the credit card waited for a month. So anyway, long story short, lawyers are very expensive. And so today I have a little over $100,000 in my retirement plans and IRAs. So Dave Ramsey says 15%, you put in 15%, I do 15%, like plus the match. So if my employer does say 6%, I do 11, or however that math works out. I haven't slept well today, so do my mental math for me. And so I just do up to a total combined amount of 15%. So as I've gone on to different jobs, my match has gotten higher. So that's helped a lot. So I think right now I'm only contributing 6% into 401ks, and they match 10, which is unheard of, which is awesome. So
that is awesome.
Yeah. And so that's what I'm currently doing with that. So about $100,000 amongst IRAs and 401ks, and IRAs are all rollovers from prior jobs. I've never actually contributed to an IRA. My daughter has an HSA account, and I just maxed that out last year, which is only, I think, $6,000, $5,000. Mm-hmm. And then I max out my HSA every year, which is around $6,000, because HSAs are awesome for people that don't know about them. So that's my nerdier deep dive. So an HSA is a health savings account. So in order to do an HSA, you need to have a high deductible health plan, which a lot of people do. You usually have one of those options through your employer. If you're employed, a lot of people who, like, if you do real estate full time, probably a high deductible plan is what most people have. And so you're qualified to do an HSA. And so you can put like tax-free money into an HSA. So essentially it's a tax benefit. You're reducing your taxable income. And then it sits there, and you can use it at there's no taxes on the money if you use it for healthcare expenses, which is usually what people know. And then what people don't realize is at the age of 65, so 65 does matter, it becomes a traditional retirement account. And so it becomes retirement savings later, and you don't have all the tax obligations that like some other accounts have. So it has like a triple net tax benefit, which you can Google and learn all about if you're a huge nerd like me.
And this is outside of the Roth, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you could basically have two Roths tax-free?
I incomed out of a Roth, but yeah.
That's a good problem.
That's a good problem.
I was gonna say how to flex without flexing, right?
So I do a traditional 401k, because now when you get to certain income levels, the name of the game is reduced taxable income. So I don't get drilled in taxes. So that's what I'm doing. So
your portfolio, what does that look like now? Do you have one house, two house, three house? Where are you at?
So this is complicated. Okay. So technically I have my house hack, which I own. I'm like 10% down on it. I originally bought it with a private money lender. We can get into that. And then I just bought a duplex yesterday. So I own 2 properties myself. And then for those of you who don't follow me, I went through a divorce over the last year. And so we're selling all the properties we had together. And so that includes a primary residence, a piece of land, and 3 rental properties, one of which is a duplex. And so I had 4 units before, but they're being sold off. But I currently still own those 4 units. So technically I'm at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, technically I'm at 8 units today, but I'm about to sell 4 of them over the next 2 weeks.
And do you plan on just reinvesting that money back into, like, I know through the divorce, you're probably like made to sell it. I'm assuming your portion, you're just going to buy more real estate.
It was to get out of a high conflict divorce situation. It was so it's actually super interesting, I guess, if you think about it. So if you're going through like a very high conflict situation and the person keeps changing their mind, we appointed a receiver. And so this person, we gave her ownership of all 5 properties, and she's a realtor, and we chose her. And she gets to choose the list prices. She gets to accept the offers. She gets to review all the offers, and we have no say in it, because it was worth my sanity in this ending within a reasonable amount of time to do that. And so I've actually been really hands off through the sale process, which is a recovering control freak was a lot. But it's been awesome because the 2021 market is so stinking hot. Like everything's selling for really ridiculous amounts of money. So it's going really well. So I think if I was in a harder market right now, and not a seller's market, then I would want more control over it. But it was definitely the easiest way out, especially right now. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's, if you're okay with it, I wouldn't mind digging into that a little bit.
Yeah, go for it.
For anyone out there that's in real estate and is going through a divorce or is thinking about it or is about to start that, what pushed you through that? What pushed you through the divorce, real estate? And it sounds like you're still buying real estate. I feel like I might be turned off by real estate at that point. I'd be like, I don't want to know anything about this for a minute. What was that mindset?
I think when I originally got into real estate, I thought you had to be handy. And so I kind of got into it with my spouse thinking he would do the repairs and maintenance and everything. And then I lived through when your, business partner, essentially, when things go south and they're not engaged anymore, they're not doing the repairs, they're making mistakes and errors because of extraordinary life circumstances. And so I've kind of lived through a partnership going south, which I'm sure a lot of people could probably relate to. But I learned through this process that I can find people to kind of do those roles that I thought I needed to have when I started in real estate. But I learned that I have other skills. And so I can still build wealth and do all these amazing things and, have the awesome tax benefits and the depreciation and all the fun, nerdy, real estate things. And a lot of the running the numbers skills are actually more kind of valuable in this space, I think, than working on your houses physically. Because I think it's hard for people that know how to do all the repairs to step back out of their business and manage the company. And for me, I don't know a ton. I mean, I can't stop painting houses, but other than that, I'm a recovering painter.
Okay, let's be honest, Sarah. That's therapy. I've seen your Instagram. You painting.
Oh no,
it's like I see you pissed off on Instagram, and then in the evening it's painting, and I'm like, yep, I see what she did there. It's either that or get drunk, whatever.
And I don't drink anymore, hardly at all. So, except for last weekend, I went to Austin, Texas, and had a good time. But anyway, I stress paint now, so it's very therapeutic.
Guys, if you don't follow Sarah on Instagram, you have to go follow her because she's having a rough day when she's like, I'm going to take apart this kitchen. And I'm like, oh, the whole kitchen. Like, you're going to take apart the whole kitchen. Yeah, the whole thing.
I epoxied my backsplash last week, and that was definitely a stress decision. It turned out pretty good, but it's, you make impulse choices when you're like, what do I want to do? What else can I do around my house? So it's a good outlet, I feel like.
So tell us your real estate strategy. What's your strategy? Are you buying multifamily? Are you flipping homes? What's your real estate strategy? What are you doing?
So buy and hold. So long-term buy and hold, because really looking for those income reducing benefits. So I like to show a loss on the business because it reduces my taxable income for people wanting to know the nitty gritty of things. Which means I just renovate a load of things every year and then show a loss. So even though I'm making income, but eventually that'll kind of trade off. I'm not going to do that forever. So, but right now that's kind of the game I'm playing, is just building up houses and kind of front loading all the big expenses and getting, new roofs, new windows, that kind of thing up front. And then usually single family up to a 4-unit, but so far I've only done single and duplexes. So I guess that's kind of been my niche. I really like a single family home because I think people will stay in there for years and years. And now I've learned I kind of want to shop for the perpetual renters. So that's kind of the market I'm trying to hit, because then I'm just I hate turnovers. It's a lot of work. So I'm trying to figure out different properties, kind of reduce turnover. And so I'm changing how I'm shopping a bit more now that I've lived through a really pain in the ass tenant in my own house. She was the worst.
And Sarah, what part of the states are you in, just so that people can know?
Yeah, so I'm in Indiana, which is Midwest for people who don't know. So I get the benefits of Midwest prices. So
which are how much right now, 2021?
The house I'm living in that I'm house hacking was $310. I bought it for $280, but it appraised for $310 when I refied it.
Cool.
Forced depreciation. I remodeled it to get that number. And then the duplex I just bought was $183, which I feel like is a steal in this market. So around $150, $180 probably.
And how are you financing?
Private money, the last two.
Wait a minute. Does that not go against the yeah, let's get into that. So private money?
So I could like blast on Instagram, I put no money down on my last two houses and it would not be wrong. So
talk us through that. Talk us through the nerdy of that. Talk nerdy to us.
So for my house that I bought, me and my daughter just needed a place to live. I needed to get out of a bad situation. And so we were looking for an exit. And then I was 31 years old and living with my parents. And that was not ideal. I'm like, I love you guys. Bless you for taking in me and a 9-month-old. But I love you guys and we will coexist greatly outside of this. And I have a good job and I like to think I have it together. So it just was, so we did 3 months with my parents. And then I shopped around private money lenders to buy my current house hack. And so kind of went through a process, talked to a few different people, including someone on this call about.
So you should thank me. You should thank me because my expensive loan got you a really good rate. Do you want to tell that story?
So if it wasn't for Felipe, I probably wouldn't have 2 houses right now. So 1,000%. Like, yeah, he's so proud. For those of you who can't see, he's celebrating. So essentially me and Felipe have been talking for a long time and I'm like, I really want to do some deals. I'm having like, I don't know if I was scared to ask people for, money or whatever, but I think out of necessity, I just wanted to possibly not own this house for a minute until my life settled down, or to do it with private money because I really didn't have any money at the time left. And so I talked to Felipe for a while and he has a high rate to invest with him, which is actually really reasonable for like hard money rates, and even some private money rates. So, I mean, he's spot on for that type of lending, but I really wanted something better. So then I started asking family members and friends. I have a couple of friends who thought about investing with me and haven't yet, but they still talk about it. I'm like, if I find a good house for you guys, I'll let you know. And so I ended up doing it with a family member at a 4% interest rate, which kind of knocked Felipe's out of the water. But I took with them
4%,
this proposal.
Diego.
That's crazy.
I took to them this proposal and I said, I'm going to do this with Felipe at this rate to buy this house because this house is the perfect opportunity. And it's in a highly appreciating area, which doesn't happen a lot around here. And so they were like, that rate's ridiculous. I'm like, I know, you want to help me out, which like, it wasn't that ridiculous, but it was definitely more than I wanted to be spending in terms of an interest only loan. So because the margins kind of were skinny on this house and I didn't want to totally kill my deal. So, was able to secure a 4% interest and I came with like all my spreadsheets and gave them business presentation and all they were cared about was Felipe's offer being high.
And did they finance the whole purchase price or did you get or did they finance a down payment?
They bought the house cash.
They bought the house cash.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. And what were the terms? So it was 4%, but what else?
4% interest only for 1 year. And then
Nice.
I had to refi.
And then you just get a
out of
refi?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy.
And so I converted my 1-bedroom, 1-bath basement into a 2-bedroom with the bonus room.
Is this the window?
This is the window. So
Okay, we gotta dig into this.
okay, so my basement, when we walked through it, there is a back bedroom. And then there's this huge ass living room, like the biggest living room ever, like more space than one would ever need. And there's this giant picture window. And I'm like, got out my measuring tape, measured this window. And I'm like, it literally is perfectly set up. It was 4 panels. The 2 panels in the middle were stationary. The outside 2 opened. And the outside windows were exactly the proper dimension and height for an egress window. And so I'm like, we're buying this. And I'm splitting this window in half. And Felipe and I think everyone else but me were like, what the hell are you doing to this window? Like there's this beautiful.
We all held our breath on Instagram as you were showing, I remember you were like, I'm going to put a wall there. And I was like, right down the middle of a window?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. Tell the story.
So the trim piece was almost the width of drywall. And so we ended up having to like do a little tricky like molding work on the window. But I'm like, we're going to run a wall down the middle and cut this room off at one end and cut this giant picture window in half. And so you'll have beautiful bedroom views and you'll have a living room view still. But my poor dad and Felipe were very concerned about my idea. And then I'm like also concerned, but I'm like, I don't have any other choice. Like, I love this house. It needs a third bedroom. This is the legal way to do it. And so we're just going for it. So I had to like be my own hype man to be like, it's fine, guys. It's going to be great. But meanwhile, I'm like freaking out inside. But, you know, no one knew that until the end. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was so worried too. And they're like, what? You were so excited the whole time. You seem confident. I'm like, you're welcome.
Yeah, about that.
It could totally look terrible. I don't know what's going to happen, but it looks great. You can't even tell from outside. So if you go on Instagram and look under my, I think I have like 2 highlights. So under my house hack now. So be probably in the first highlight, you'll see me like draw on the camera. Like there's going to be a wall built in the middle of this window and everyone freak out.
Man.
So, but it worked great. Yeah.
And
got me a legal bedroom.
And so that property now is, or at least the bottom part, how much money is that bringing in?
$1,300 a month. So
just the downstairs?
Yeah.
Good job.
Wow. And what's your mortgage?
1,382.
So you're paying like $82 a month to live
in a $310,000 house. Yeah. I was living for free for a minute with my marijuana smoking tenant that I got rid of. So, but I was like, it's worth it to discount my rent price a little bit because there's a family trying to hit a specific price point. And so I dropped it a little bit for them. And I think I'm actually going to drop it a little bit more for them if they sign a 2-year lease because I don't want to deal with turnover. So I have a lease sent to them for $1,200. So I'll be living for like 160, 180. So, but it's worth it to keep these good people. So I moved. So one of the properties we're selling, I moved the tenants out of that property or they have to leave by Monday and they're moving into my basement now. So it's actually really great timing that their house sold really fast. My lady got out who was smoking weed in my basement and they get to live there at a discount and they're locking in a 2-year lease. So I'll have new house hack tenants on Saturday. So
very cool. Very cool.
And when did you refinance that property? Or have you? Because you said you bought it for $280 and it just appraised.
So we bought it $280 in June of last year. And then I just refied out of it in April. So like April 12th, I want to say. And it appraised for $310. So
okay. Awesome. And now what are the terms on the new loan for people that
it's a conventional.
Conventional, 20% down? Like 20%?
No. So it's like a primary residence loan. Okay. So I think I'm a little shy of 10%. Okay. So we did like an equity gift into that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So we did a gift of equity to pay for the down payment. And so I didn't put any money into the deal. That's the first time I've ever closed and gotten a check. So that was really badass. It was $2,000. I didn't Instagram it, but I was like, they really do give checks out in real life. So it was pretty cool but I had put $26,000 into the basement to renovate it and doing the driveway on the side, which is like double Felipe's numbers.
So Sarah, really quick, out of curiosity, can you tell the audience like how important it is to start off like what you're doing with house hacking and like eliminating your biggest expense, right? How does that fit into what you're doing? Let's talk about that quick. I know you're nerdy with it.
Yeah, it's crazy important. I would say if you can convince whoever you are my toddlers too, she doesn't have much, but she hasn't complained yet about the house hacking. But I really think it's the best way to start because you're cutting out your biggest monthly expense probably. And so, you know, I have an extra $1,000 a month to now invest, which is like $12,000 a year, give or take, that I wouldn't have otherwise. And I mean, around here, that could almost be a down payment on a house. So that's a lot of money, but I think people glance right over it and think you can't house hack. Especially because they always say like, I have kids and I whatever. And I'm like, Coach Carson has like a whole team of kids. I think he only has 3. And he house hacks. And there's a lot of investors who house hack their way. Felipe's mom did house hacking back when before it was a thing. So, I mean, it's just a really good way to go to get your expenses down because I wouldn't be where I was at. And I needed to house hack at the time as well, just because I was covering the mortgage on all 5 properties that we owned together for, I think, 10 months. And so, yeah, it was a little bit of a chaos time period for me. But now I'm like on the upswing. Now I'm like, I only have my own bills and I'm paying like $80 to live in a really nice house. So
That's awesome.
Right,
That's
right.
awesome because it's and what you were saying, Sarah, about the reducing, like if you can eliminate your living expenses, like sure you can sacrifice, say a little bit, right? Well, now I'll have a basement that I wanted to have as a game room, whatever. People can create so many excuses.
I'm
But
too
if
busy
people
to have a game room. Be too busy to have a game room, and then you won't have this problem.
Exactly. But if people just decided, right, to sacrifice for 2 years or 3 years and house hack, live with roommates or buy a duplex, live with a tenant, live with somebody in the basement, whatever. I feel like if they just did that, they can do so much more in the future because that gives them that leg up right in the beginning. Just like you said, your mortgage is 1,300, right? But if you completely eliminated, you have an additional $14,000, $12,000 a year. But if you do that every single year, that can add up. And people don't look at it that way. And Dave Ramsey has a quote too. It's like, if you live for 2 years like most people don't, you can live for the rest of your life like most people won't.
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, it's like people just need to understand that house hacking is a great way to just sacrifice a little bit, but still create wealth, reduce your expenses, and also be able to create a portfolio slowly but surely.
Yeah.
And then Sarah, it's interesting because I think Diego took that house hacking to the extreme. If I'm not mistaken, he lives like in a penthouse in Austin and still hasn't bought his own house because every house he buys, he just house hacks it and moves on to the next one. So he just never buys his own house. But Sarah, for the audience, I'm a single mom or a single dad or I'm alone. I don't want a house hack. I'm too scared. How did you get over the fears of doing that? And what about your parents? Like, what did they say about you, like house hacking your house?
I'm really close to my family, so they have all the opinions. So they walked it with me and loved the house. So my house is gorgeous. It's on an acre. It's on a river. It's really good area. But everyone and their brother were like, there's going to be people living in your basement. I'm like, we're not living together. Like there is a fireproof barrier between the 2 levels of our home, and the stairwell is closed because that was what you needed for fire code. Always call the building department before you remodel. And so I'm like, there's an entire like level, like we're not hanging out. We don't cohabitate together. We're not like sharing rooms.
Hey, let me get some coffee.
Yeah. Like I'm like, I don't want to hang out. Like I literally will walk the house with potential tenants. I'm like, we're not going to hang out. Like I'm going to stay in the front yard. You're going to stay in the backyard. And like, here we are. So, I mean, they have their own beautiful patio. I have a full acre. So they have like a half acre on the back. I have a half acre in the front. And so it's kind of perfect for this situation. But I shot for something that I knew I could live in. So I have this guy, actually the contractor that just did my bathroom. He drove by my house like 3 times trying to find it because he knew I was house hacking and knew the story. And he was like, I never thought this house would have a rental unit in the basement. You can't see it from the road. And he's like, I thought this was a really nice house and I didn't think this would be yours. I'm like, thanks a lot for the vote of confidence. But I think you can shop differently when you house hack also. You can still buy a nice home that you're proud to live in, and the neighbors probably hardly know, minus the odd large amount of cars coming in and out of here. So, but
it's important what you just said, Sarah. And I think that a lot of times people forget that when you're house hacking or shopping for a house to house hack, it's not necessarily about like giving up security or giving up your being comfortable or even giving up what you want. Because I know, for example, Diego has some really nice house hacks out in Austin, like some beautiful homes that I've seen him take pictures in front of, and he rents them by the room. So you don't have to give up you being comfortable to house hack. You just buy a house that fits that mold. Like you said, for example, I house hack a 4-bedroom, 1-bath upstairs, and then downstairs it's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath. So downstairs, like you said, there's a full wall. My upstairs tenants and my downstairs tenants never even cross paths because my upstairs tenants park upstairs, go to their room. Same thing downstairs. They have their own entrance. So there's never really any like crossing paths or like, hey, he drank my milk. It's like you're upstairs, you're downstairs, right? Like they never cross paths. So I think it's important for people that are listening to the show today to realize that you don't have to give up your lifestyle to house hack, right?
In my house,
lose it.
The upstairs in my house is beautiful for people who haven't seen it. Like it's nicer than probably a lot of people's. Like it just feels like a single story ranch. Like I'm not missing out anything by not having a basement. I have a main floor laundry. I have the garage up here. But again, like I'm still hitting numbers in this market. So I think that's the advantage too of shopping for a single family home, you can convert into a duplex too.
So let's move on from this property. Property number 2. How'd you find it? What are you doing with it? Property number 2.
I'm very proud of it being off the MLS in 2021.
What? Talk about it.
That never happens anymore.
Yeah.
So found it on so actually my realtor, who has sold me, I think, every property but one, called me and she's like, hey, her partner, so she has a new partnership. Her partner is about to list a duplex. And she's like, it just looks like a property you'd like, because I like a nicer house. I'm picky about aesthetics somewhat. And it was the garage in the middle with the duplexes to the sides. So there's less, people on top of people, and a side-by-side duplex. And it was in great shape. And so I was the first one to look at it. So it was listed. We had to give the tenants 24 hours notice. And so I went in like 24 hours and 10 minutes when we could get in, like, first one to see it. And then there was a bunch of showings after me, but we put in an offer right away. And then I did an escalation clause, which I've talked about a little bit on Instagram, but I can talk about that too. So
yeah, please. What is an escalation clause? How does that work?
So on this duplex, so found on the MLS, I'm like, okay, well, this is clearly not going to sell for the 165 or whatever it was listed for. And so I put an offer at 165, and then you add an addendum, which is just a piece of paperwork your realtor gets together, which is your escalation agreement. And so you put in what your maximum you spend on the property, which is your cap. And so mine was 196. And then you do your escalation kind of increment in there as well. So how much you want to beat other offers by. And so I can't remember what I did at the time, but I ended up offering 165, saying my cap is 196 and getting it for 183. So I was shocked it didn't go all the way up, which is really exciting, because you'll only beat another person's offer above, you'll only go up by whatever increment you set. So you could say I'll beat any offer up to 195 by like $200 or $2,000. You can kind of pick whatever you want. So yeah. And then I learned something interesting. I don't know if this is in all states or if you guys have used them, but in Indiana, it's the net proceeds of the sale is what you escalate above, which is something interesting. And so I essentially did everything in my offer to get the net proceeds of the sale to the seller higher. So I paid for their closing costs. I paid for their title work. I paid for like anything I could of theirs to just like beat out the other offers. And so I feel like that probably helped get the purchase price down a little bit.
Yeah, that's really smart, because at that point is sure the sales price is important,
right?
But if they have the sales price and they're paying the title policy that, let's say, is $3,000 and giving $1,000 for home warranty and paying HOA, right, whatever, that can begin to add up. And if people are not and if they compare sales price and the net sheets, like the net profits and all of that stuff, they're gonna pick the one that gives them the most cash in their pocket. Right. So that's really smart.
Yeah. Because I didn't realize that until we got to that page, and I'm like, oh shoot, we need to go back to the original offer and like change a bunch of stuff, because I want to pay for everything of theirs that I can to help that out. So, and it was an all cash sale again with the same private money lender. So thank you, Felipe, because we did it once together and they got their money back, and they're like, this is sweet. We get rent checks, we get paid every month, we get interest only payments, and then we get our money back. And so they did another deal with me, and the next yes was a lot easier because they've seen it done once now. So
that's cool.
That's amazing.
And so this one, you said you just closed on it?
Yeah, yesterday. So
okay. And you bought it for 183 and something. Yes. And what is the plan for that property?
So there's 2 tenants in it right now. So it's rented on both sides. Their rents are so low. One's paying $625 a month and one's paying $580. And markets like 800 to 900, maybe up to 1,000 is like comp. So they're like $200 to $300 under market value. And so one lady is moving out. So she's building a house. It should have been built already, but supply shortages. She said they're waiting for like the wood for her kitchen cabinets, and then she'll be out. So I'm just going to let her write out her loan. And then I get to ruin grandma's life and have a little come to Jesus about how under market value she is and how like I have bills to pay. No, we're just going to have a little chat, because I'd like to meet her in the middle, because she keeps a really tidy house, but I don't know if that's feasible for her budget and kind of where she is. But it's an older lady. Her husband passed away a few years back, and the current landlord, sold the property because he just felt too bad to raise her rent. But, he also said the cost of the house were getting too expensive with how low their rent was. So I feel like you just have to have a frank conversation about, I bought this house. I have, a mortgage to pay, I guess an interest only payment to pay right now. And you have all these bills, you have taxes, you have, lots of things that go into it. And so we'll have a little chat and we'll see what happens with her. So I'll talk all about that. We'll see. I sent them letters the day of closing. So that's kind of how I did my last inherited tenants. I just sent a letter being like, hey, just letting you know about the transfer of ownership. I'm Sarah. I'm going to serve as the property manager. If you need anything, reach out to me. Here's my contact. Here's my PO box. Call me at this number or email me to set up a meeting in the next 2 weeks. And we're going to chat about a real lease agreement and all of those things. Their lease is 1 page, not like 1 page front and back, like literally the front of a page of paper is the lease.
That's terrible.
So I'm very anxious. I'm going to get them on a real lease and then ruin their dreams about raising rent. But it just needs to happen because we need to stay somewhat competitive with the market. We need to come up a little bit. Like 530 is ridiculous in this market.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And so is your plan to like in 6 months refinance to a regular conventional loan? What is your plan to pay your private money back?
Yes. So this is interesting. So I am going to, so my plan is, so we are currently selling those 5 properties that me and husband had owned together. And so one of them is closed already, 3 of them are pending sale, and 1 has yet to be listed. And so when I get the proceeds of all of those sales, I'm going to put it down on this house, or I'm going to essentially buy the house back with them. So I'll pay my lender with whatever proceeds I get. It should be, I don't know if it'll be like, it should at least be half of the amount I owe them. And then I think I'm either going to refinance it on a 20-year, 20% down conventional again, is with a portfolio lender, and then, or do a HELOC on it. I haven't decided. So I guess that would be a good question for you guys is, would you 20% down payment and then do a mortgage, or would you HELOC on that? Or what would you do? What would you do in my situation? You're getting like roughly $100,000, give or take. What do you do with that?
Personally, if you don't have a rhyme or reason immediately for the money, I would absolutely put a line of credit on it just so that you can reuse the money. So a lot of times, if you notice real estate investors' biggest problem when they first start out or at any time is, where can I find the money? And if you can become your own bank, then it's possible because you have a very good W-2. So you're able to refinance or get deals on other properties, right? So what I would do if I were you is I'd put a line of credit so that you have continual revolving access to the finances, i.e. the 100,000, right? Let me give you an example.
I'm not even in like Dave Ramsey world, because this is like what Felipe is explaining is exactly what I want to do. And it's like so far removed. I'm like, I've gone to the full dark side. Like, give me a line of credit. Yes. I just want to be my own bank. Like, please don't make me talk to another lender about financing again.
This is, I have 3 available lines of credits. All 3 are over 6 figures. And I've never had to, I want to say that lightly. I have had to pull loans again, but I am my own bank when it comes to down payments and things like that. Like, I never stress about, oh my gosh, I got to take money out to do a deal, right? So I'll give you an example. I have one house that's completely paid off. It's worth $190,000, and I have $150,000 line of credit on it. As deals come up my way, I pull from my line of credit. There's my down payment money, and then the loan loves it because the loan, when they look at DTI, they only look at my interest payment as debt, not the whole line of credit, nor how much I pull out. So they're like, oh, your interest payment on $100,000 is going to be what, $500, $400? They're like, okay, that's a no-brainer. That's fine. We can let you borrow it. And then what I just go do is I either go wholesale, flip, or refinance another property to pay off that debt, and then I just redo it, right? And then I can just reuse that money over and over and over again. Or if I'm like, okay, the market's going up, I'm going to pay interest only for 6 months. Once one of my properties is available to refi, I refi and I pay off the line of credit. Or like I said, I do a flip, or my tenants pay off the line of credit. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant because I get this great deal that I'm paying more money cash for than anyone else. For example, Diego and I right now are in the middle of buying 16 units in Georgia, and it's going to require $65,000 from each person. And I don't have to worry about where am I going to get that money? Is it coming out of savings? What's going on? I'm just going to go to my line of credit, and it's going to add, I think $100 to my probably maybe $200 to my debt a month. And that's no big deal because one of my tenants will pay for that. And I get a 16-unit apartment complex. So I'm not worried about that cash anymore. And now I have the line of credits for 6 years. So now I have 6 years to figure out how to pay off 50 grand, which is not a big deal, right? So it's I think lines of credit are a great strategy for anyone to use responsibly. And if you have the availability to do it, I would say 100%. And then I'll say one more thing about that, and then I'll get off my high horse. What I also like about line of credit over the BRRRR strategy, which sells a lot, I like the line of credit strategy better because it's something that you have available to you and you're not risking the market. And what I mean by that is, let's say Austin, right? Austin, you bought a $200,000 home a year ago. Now it's worth $400,000. Great. You have $200,000 in equity. Good for you. So you have two options. You either go BRRRR that money and use it once and then it's gone and you're paying interest on it forever. Or two, you put a line of credit on that money. You have access to it. You use it as you please to buy more deals and you're only paying interest on money that you're actually using and it's revolving. You pay it off, you can use it again. When you BRRRR, you take the money with you and you can only use it once because they're not going to give you a BRRRR again, right? You have to wait for equity to go up. So with a line of credit, you're able to revolving use that money to buy more deals.
Yeah. So that's kind of my thought too. How are you feeling about it, Diego? Do you like the Felipe model?
I do. Now, there's two things. If you mentioned that you wanted to do a 20-year amortize, I wouldn't recommend that because the 20-year amortize it shows a higher DTI, right? Your debt is going to be higher because you're paying more in less amount of years comparing to a 30-year loan. You can get a 30-year loan and you can still pay it off in 20 years or 15 years, but you cannot change that back. You cannot tell the bank, hey, I took a 20-year loan. Can I pay it in 30? So you have more power and sure, on paper, you might pay interest longer, but you can always pay the principal down so that you can pay it in 20 years. That's number one.
Yeah. Number
two, I feel like you can, with the mortgage payment being lower, you can also have a better quote unquote cash on cash return because your mortgage payment is lower, better returns that way. But then I would totally do the line of credit strategy. Now, did your private lender put a lien on the property?
No.
Or no? No. Okay. So this is amazing. That's why I went like, holy crap, because you took basically the bank when you're going to get a HELOC or if you refinance the property or whatever, the bank is not going to know that you have to pay somebody else.
Right.
So you can you're paying 4% to somebody else, interest only, and you can get a line of credit whenever. Let's say the bank says, hey, you have to wait 6 months before you can get a line of credit. You can do that. Let's say we're in June, you can get that in December and you can start using that line of credit. It's the interest rate is still going to be 4%, but now you can make that money work. Now at this point, you're paying interest only on one thing for 4% and you're still paying interest only on the other one. Shoot, you have a lot of opportunity.
Yeah. So interesting thing about this 20-year. So I 1,000% agree with Diego so I put my house hack on a 30-year because it's interesting because Dave Ramsey is all about like risk avoidance, but he's like, do a 15-year. But if you think about like risk wise, you have flexibility to pay your 30-year like a 15. But if it goes south or things get bad or like, who knows what life happens in general, like over the course of 30 years, you have an option to pay it slower if you need to. And so I really like the 30-year. The interesting thing about the 20-year, which I need to preface by saying that is the only reason I'm talking 20 years is because I do a portfolio loan on rentals. So I have a bank that will lend to me with a portfolio loan and the shortest term they will do, or the longest term they will do is 20 years, but that also does not negatively impact my DTI in any way because it's held. So a portfolio loan is a commercial loan and it's held within the bank. So the bank doesn't sell it on the secondary market. So like banks make money by so my house right now, like Chase Bank owned it or whatever. And then they sold it to like Freddie Mae, Fannie Mae, like however that all works. They sell it on the secondary market. So that's why it's conventional and conforming. Portfolio loans are not. The bank just holds them and keeps that money essentially to themselves and keeps lending from their own kind of pocket, and they don't sell them on the secondary market. And so that doesn't show up. Like, so if a bank runs my credit, they can't see that I own any of the rentals that I own right now because it's all held privately with a bank. So that's the cool thing about portfolio lenders.
That is really cool.
They don't offer a 30-year with the one I really like. One offers a 15, one offers a 20. So yeah, cool. So that's my only weird caveat is portfolio loans kind of change up the game a little bit. And I've tried really hard to get someone to do a 30-year with me and they won't. So that's where
I would take that, Diego. I would take a 20-year mortgage if it wasn't on my DTI. I think I would be okay with that. Yeah.
I really don't like the 15-year because I don't like how you're locked in. Like the 15 to 20-year like really changes a lot and you wouldn't think it would. But the 15-year numbers just like hurt my heart and my cash flow.
Yeah. No, I get that. So, Sarah, before we close it up, and thank you again for spending time with us and kind of explaining everything with what you're doing. What's next for Nerd's Guide to FI? If you guys don't know, that's Sarah's IG.
So that's my Instagram. So I have a blog I've been working on. The lady who's now running my website or doing my website, she's getting married, I think next weekend, actually. Cool. And so I was like, make it through your wedding planning, and then we'll go back at like grinding it, like blog things. And so we're going to have some cool stuff, hopefully in the next year, once, her wedding and honeymoon are all over and all those good things. I also did like a handbook on kind of like tenant screening and things that I put out. But I haven't really advertised it yet because I think she and I are going to do some video content and things around it. So I'm going to be doing like a harder launch, but it's out there. It's on the blog if people want to get on there and see anything, but it's kind of like bare bones right now until we really get into it. But I also do my podcast also. And so I have a new episode probably coming out next week.
Nice.
Because I'm really inconsistent at posting, but first buy a house. That seemed more important.
Yeah, probably find a place to live. That'd be great.
I really wanted to keep all my tenants that I had. And so I've been like trying to find a house really bad to like keep all my people. And so that's what I did. And I managed to keep my 2 tenants, which is awesome. So
that's awesome. So where can people find you, connect? I'm a nerd. I want to connect with Sarah. Just kidding. Where do I find you?
I'm good with it. No shame. So I'm on Instagram primarily. I pretty much live on there, except for lately I've been really busy because I just took a new day job and yeah. So Instagram under Nerds Guide to FI. You can check out the podcast, but DM me on there. I still answer all my DMs if people have any questions. And I think my email and everything's on there as well. So yeah, check it out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Sarah, thank you so much for jumping on the Rat Race to FI podcast. I really appreciate your story.
Always fun with you too. It's always a great time.
It's always a good we didn't even get into cryptocurrency.
Oh man, we missed out.
We want to stay friends.
I hate crypto. Felipe loves it. So
it's a perfect time to buy right now. The market's low. Dogecoin.
Don't time the market. That's my sign off.
Oh my gosh. Don't time the market. We got to do a part 2 season now of cryptocurrency with Nerds Guide to FI.
There we go. Oh man. I'll be like, I have nothing to talk about, but don't do it. But I mean, I'm just not like techie, I guess.
We'll get into it. We'll get into it next time. Diego, any last words?
No, but thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing your story. It's very inspirational to see how like going through the divorce and stuff, you're still like, okay, I'm going to get rid of these houses and I'm going to continue buying and building the portfolio, build a passive income, house hack, and get started again. So
the first property really sold, we sold it for 97% above what we bought it for in 2019. Wow. So I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Good for you.
On the rest of them, but yeah, I'm feeling like 2021 is a great year.
That's
good for you.
That's good.
So.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much, Sarah.
The Rat Race to FI podcast, where we discuss money, mindset, real estate investing, and ways to achieve financial independence. Whether you are a rookie or a veteran needing new ideas for investing or creating side hustles, you're in the right place.